Hey guys, so I'm coming to you directly from the closet in my office. It was the only place that I could find that was quiet, and I wasn't going to disturb anyone if I was making a video. So here we are. Okay, so today we are going to be looking at how to survive a zombie apocalypse, which I feel like has the same, has a lot of the same kind of overarching themes as how to survive your analysing argument. So there's a real zombie feel going through this. Alright, so let's begin. Okay, so just like any day of reckoning, preparation for this SAC is key. Okay, practice and study is essential in the lead up to this analysing argument SAC. I would really recommend at least 4 run-throughs. Now, they might not all be full run-throughs, you may not have time to do that, but at least kind of writing intro and a paragraph of analysis, as many times as you can to really practice those skills of the I task and practice the skill of writing those analysis paragraphs. Obviously, lack of preparation will mean that you will be eaten alive. Obviously, physically and metaphorically speaking, this SAC will eat you up because it's a big one and it's pretty tough. So make sure you've prepped for it. Okay, planning ahead. Just like a zombie apocalypse, it's important for your analysing argument that you plan ahead. So, step 1. Okay, read the article carefully. So the first thing you do when you go into this SAC is that you read the articles. Remember, there'll be 3. Read the articles really, really carefully without making any annotation. Okay, what you want to do is read the articles and make sure that you understand the tone and the contention and maybe the arguments as well, okay? But I would really be looking for understanding the article, the issue, and the contention first, okay? Because basically, if you get the contention wrong, it's very hard to come back from, because it means that basically you're working backwards from the wrong answer. So it's really important that you get the contention correct. Now, there is a little trick, if you could call it a trick, to double checking your contention. My rule is always to kind of read the article, get to the end of it and go, okay, so it was basically saying this. And then what I then do is go back to the headline and I check what the headline was and make sure that it basically summarizes what I thought the article was about. So use your headline as a way to just double check that you've covered all the important things in your contention that seem to turn up in the headline. If something is hinted at in the headline and you haven't put it in your contention, I probably would put it into my contention because it's obviously important enough that they put it in their headline. Okay, step 2. Identify everything. So you've read it once. Now what you need to do is reread it, looking for arguments, looking for tone shifts, looking for the strongest persuasive pulls. You're looking for all of that kind of stuff. Definitely looking for your I task as well. Okay, so issue, text, author, audience, relationship, stance, and contention. Now, my class, we spoke at length about the importance of audience and relationship, and we said how a high range piece will engage with the idea of the audience and the relationship, not just initially in the introduction, but when they're actually doing their analysis, when they're answering those questions like, what does it make the audience think and feel? How does that make them more likely to agree with the contention? You'll be also referencing the particular audience that you think are reading it and how the relationship is impacting your interpretation of what he's saying or she is saying. Definitely try and be as specific as possible when you're answering those, what does it make the audience think and feel? When you're talking about the audience, as much analysis as possible. Try and make it, as much as possible, try and make your analysis be specific to the audience, to the particular audience that you think are reading it. So say, for instance, if you think it's teenagers that are from low socioeconomic areas, then direct all of your, I guess, discussion about what it's making the audience think around the idea that, okay, well, it's teenagers from low socioeconomic areas. Okay, that would be my advice. That is really a high range response. Okay, so then step 3. What you then need to look for is this tricky bit, which, I mean, it's not that tricky once you get the hang of it, but you do need practice. And that's why I reckon you need to at least do 4 kind of run-throughs before you'll feel comfortable to do this SAC. So step 3 is to look for where the arguments align so that you can pair them up into paragraphs. Because the way that we're going to structure this is through paragraphs that will analyze all of the article's first argument, all the article's second argument, all the article's third argument. This will make more sense when I show you the kind of structure layout, okay? But yes, you need to work out how the arguments align with one another from article to article. So you can pair them up into paragraphs. The other thing that you need to do at that stage is work out what persuasive pulls you're going to address. So you've kind of circled your arguments in step 2. And then in step 3, you want to kind of start going, okay, well, I'm going to address these arguments in paragraph 1. What persuasive pulls do I want to address? And start kind of, I guess planning out the essay. Basically, that's what you're doing. All right, now remember, one of the trickier things that you need to do in this SAC is work out how the 3 articles' arguments cross over each other. Okay, now this is so you can start doing your comparison and also create a more complex essay, something that's kind of a little bit more sophisticated than just kind of like going through the essay. They're going through each article, not as sophisticated. So, how to find these crossovers. Now, I made my class a poster of this. You could just screenshot this list and then print yourself off a poster of it, or come and see me, I've got extras. Okay, so my rule about finding crossovers between arguments would be think broad, okay? Think broad, kind of, what are the basic ideas that are being addressed? But don't go so broad that you're just talking about contention. You need to be careful of that. Look for similarities of ideas that are dealt within the arguments. Okay, so, do they both talk about the financial issues? Do they both talk about social issues? Do they both talk about ethical issues or practical aspects? So kind of think about, okay, in broad terms, what are each of them addressing? Then remember, these articles both might look at the same idea or a similar idea, but from differing points of view. That doesn't mean that they don't cross over. They still do cross over. They address the same idea. So, for instance, all 3 might examine the usefulness of the police. However, one of them sees them as pointless, and then the other 2 represent them as indispensable. You don't have to have all 3 line up. So you might find that in some cases, 2 of your articles talk about a similar idea, but then the 3rd article doesn't talk about it. That's okay. Okay, you might just address those two articles in that paragraph, and that's okay. All right. Sometimes all 3 of them will address it, and sometimes only 2 will, and that's okay. All right. Remember, you're being marked on 2 things: your ability to analyze and your ability to compare. Okay, there are 2 aspects of this marking. So it's really important that you are putting in some I guess, energy into learning how to compare them. All right. So then step 4, we need to write it. So you've written all this stuff on your sheet, on your articles. You've annotated what persuasive pools you want to use, what arguments and how they're crossing over, all that kind of stuff. That is your plan. Okay, that's your constructed plan. You need to stick to it. Okay, the biggest pitfall I think people fall into with this SAC is that they run out of time. Because they want to talk about all these things and they just don't get time to. So it's really important that you have a plan and you stick to it. I would also recommend when you're writing is to kind of make sure your language doesn't become too stale, that you're not just kind of using the same phrases over and over again, because I feel like this essay, you become quite robotic in the way that you talk sometimes with this essay. So you do really need to make a conscious effort to kind of vary your vocabulary. Okay, so I will see you in the next video to explain how to start writing your intro. Okay, bye!